We are going to be 10 billion by 2050. We are going to live on a planet 4 degrees hotter. We are going to have more mouths and less food. We are going to have less land and more pollution. But we crossed oceans and we defeated diseases. But we went to the moon and we blossomed the desert. Because we are innovators. We are farmers. We are makers. We are dreamers. And we are going to gather and discuss, create and inspire minds and souls. Because we are feeding our future.
Okay, I'd like everybody to take out their cell phones because I'm going to go really quick. I was given a limited amount of time and I have 4 major topics for a very, very complex talk about climate change and food systems. So take out your phones because I have some things I want to show you. Earthrise, December 24th, 1968. You've seen this in many, many climate talks, but it is the catalog picture when we first saw Earth from a different view. This is another picture, even more famous, the blue marble. And what this does is give us an overview effect or a cosmic perspective. A world without borders, without nations, cultures, countries, one planet. We're all on this vehicle together. There's no walls, there's no countries, we're all together in this. And that's how we're going to solve this problem, together. And I want you to think about this overview perspective or this cosmic perspective because it's really a system, a complex system perspective that I want to help you understand better today. So, the Earth has an atmosphere around it. Venus has an atmosphere around it. And Mercury has an atmosphere around it. And there are 3 different temperatures for each of these atmospheres. But we call this kind of the Goldilocks effect. One is too hot, one is too cold, and one is just right. The conditions here are perfect for human life, for agriculture, for development, which are not found anywhere else right at the moment in our known universe. And so this is another view of the Earth. It shows our atmosphere and how thin this beautiful layer is, this blue layer that protects us, that creates this Goldilocks atmosphere. We are trapping 400,000 for the drama, but I wanted to let you know that if you had one of these atomic bombs, similar to the Hiroshima bomb, go off 400,000 times a day, then I think you would be worried about climate change. But we don't have that. Instead, we have an invisible gas that affects us. Things that we do today happen 10 years from now. But then it's too late. The effects and the catastrophe from that are way too late. So humans are putting so much greenhouse gas emissions in the air, it's equivalent to 400,000 atomic bombs every single day. Now I want to talk about climate change and food. This is a stat from the U.S. Department of Defense in 2014 that if we do not do something about climate change, we're going to see some pandemic effects. One of them is already been seen, many of them have been seen, with Syrian refugees, so climate refugees. And we break it down into 3 separate areas: food, water, and disease. Our food supply will be affected, and it's a global system that is very closely tied into a nexus or a systems that we need to address. Our food supply, so there's a food surplus and deficit from a study that was done from 1965 until 2012 that shows countries of the world and some deficits and surpluses. This number is not so up to date, it's 2012, but North America had several droughts in the last, and so their surplus is a little bit different than this now. Food supply is affected in many different areas: nutrition, drought, heat. For every day during the growing season, we have a temperature rise. If it goes above 29 degrees, we have effects that go towards our crop yields. By the end of the century, U.S. corn yields could fall by 1/3 from heat stress alone. And then 1.85 degrees Fahrenheit increase could mean decreased yields by 21% worldwide. Pests. How does climate affect pests? Well, Asia has a multi-billion-dollar surplus that is high at risk because of pests. Because of the temperatures rise, we get more pests and more food insecurity. Soybeans, well, they draw on aphids. So as the conditions get warmer in our world, we have aphids that affect those crops. Beetles. And then diseases. So all different types of plants and trees are affected by temperatures that can cause, in this instance, a rust. So wheat leaf rust, which thrives in high temperatures and can lead to crop losses. And nutrition. So rising concentrations of CO2 gases really can reduce the levels of nutrients in our crops and in our foods. So and I'm just touching on a few, and I'm trying to go fast because it's slow, but it's a very complex system that I want you to kind of glean out, that in 10 minutes it doesn't give it justice, of all the different factors, and I'm only touching on a few here that can happen. Toxins. So we see here at the conference a lot of vertical farming, controlled environmental agriculture, so that we can maybe take these systems into a closed system that we don't have to worry so much about some climate effects that we really don't know what will happen 100% in 10 years, but we can prepare a little bit better. The next is water issues. 12% domestic use, 19% in horticulture, and 69% in agriculture. As temperatures rise, so does water use. People, crops, energy, industry, and animals all need water. So a big thing with agriculture, I really don't hear a lot of talk about water. There is some, but the Syria climate refugee situation was originally projected by NASA, satellite photos, 2007, that says, hey, there's a reoccurring drought coming, be prepared. And the farmers, who are great, and the government and the infrastructure did not prepare properly. And so then, after they kept drilling deeper and deeper, then they ran into many, many problems. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of the world's population, and this is a good slide to take a photo of. There is a Bible, so to say. It's called The Limits to Growth, written by Donella Meadows, Dennis Meadows, and a couple others, William Behrens and Jorgen Randers, the Club of Rome, and the Volkswagen Stiftung. This is a publication that first started in 1972, and you might have heard of it. One of the things that is often quoted, if we all lived like Americans, we would need 5 planets worth of resources. So basically it was MIT coming together to do initially a research paper to talk about how our future looks, how much land, how much trees, how much water, how much air a human needs to live in. And that number has changed over the years because of climate change, but it basically says you need around 2.7 hectares of land to sustain Marc Buckley throughout his lifespan. And then they took that natural resources and every individual on our planet and kind of did a modeling of it, a very dynamic model with many different facets. And this is a free download for everybody, so I want you to have that so you have a little bit of an understanding. Each one of us and our planet has systems. Our planet has 5 systems. You see the 5 systems here: cryosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, geosphere, and biosphere. All these systems work in harmony. If one of the systems breaks down or gets sick, the others begin to fail. There's no one brain that controls all these systems. They all work in harmony together as this overview effect, as a collective, as a global planet, as a global Earth. We also have systems in our body, 11 systems. These systems all work in harmony. If we get sick, if we have a disease, if we break a leg, if we have other ailments, it affects our other systems and of our body. And we get sick, and sometimes we recover. But they all work in harmony, and there's no one brain or one system in this collective that organizes and rules it all and controls it all. They all work in harmony. I want you to think about systems in this perspective. And here is a dynamic model. Systems thinking, the systemic approach for modeling. It's used by the UN, it's used by the European Parliament, it's used by many, many companies, but it's breaking down this complex world, this earth we live in, our bodies, our systems, our food systems, because they're all built on many faceted aspects that need to work in harmony. You just can't say, okay, well, I'll solve the water problem, or I'll do hydroponics or vertical farming and that'll solve all the problems. No, it doesn't work like that. So I want you to know about systems thinking. There's inputs, outputs, there's feedback loops, and it's important. And this next slide is showing you places where you can get paid software, free software, where you can learn more about dynamic modeling, about systems thinking, even a model used by MIT Sloan for the World Climate Discussions for the UN. What it does is it's kind of like a role-playing or a game where you pretend like you're a politician or someone from the UN, and you hold a UN summit to discuss climate on how China or the US or whatever your country is, so you can understand how complex these processes are. Because it's important that we understand how they all fit together. And that brings me to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is how we've seen them normally. I hope you've seen them anyway. They're very important. They actually followed about the same time as the Paris Agreement, where the world came together in 2015 and agreed on 1.5 degrees to keep us under that warming temperature. But there are 17 goals that kind of are a system to address all the problems we face that need to work together. They can't always just be seen individually, so that they can then be put into a system or model for success. Here's an article from The Guardian. Well, more than half of the world's businesses do not really understand or know or do anything about the UN Sustainable Goals, Development Goals, and that's very sad because here's another picture that most of you have not seen. It's a pie chart, and I'll explain why the because is, that companies probably don't understand or know the benefit of following the Sustainable Development Goals. But this is a cake or a pie or a food pyramid of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was released by Johan Rockström in the Eat Form, and it's more how I see the Sustainable Development Goals, with the most important aspect being at the bottom. The bottom of these goals is agriculture, food, beverage, our natural resources, water, fresh water, biodiversity. And then it moves on up the chain in order of importance, or up the pie or cake in order of importance. But the base, the hierarchy of needs, the most important thing for us as humans and our planet is this bottom half. If we don't have those basic necessities, that system, that pie, doesn't grow, it collapses. And so that's why agriculture, food, and beverage is the absolute most important key for us to solve and figure out. It touches every human on earth. Not every human on earth has a car. Not every human on earth uses fossil fuels to some respect. But every person eats, has health, goes to the doctor, or needs to survive. It's a basic human need. And here's where the aspect comes in why businesses don't understand that. They're looking for money, handout. I've got an idea, I've got a vertical farm, I've got a water solution, and I need some money to do this job, or I need this money to start my company. What they don't know is not only at the Paris Agreement did we come together as countries and agree that on 1.5 degrees of warming, we also agreed upon the Sustainable Development Goals, and in the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a number, a dollar figure that we've come up with that we need to invest in 15 years, back in 2015, by 2030, in order to make sure we reach those goals. If we do not invest this money, if we do not have new projects, if we do not change to sustainable projects or businesses, we will not be under 1.5 degrees. We will go way past, and nobody really knows what those catastrophic events will be. So I want to break this down just shortly. 90 trillion US dollars in 15 years by 2030, started in 2015. In 2015, you could probably tell me better, but I don't think we made over $368 billion of sustainable investments. It was at the end of the year. The agreement wasn't until later in the year, so that's okay. 2016, I believe the number was higher. It was around 860-something billion. Still, it was under $1 trillion. We will need to invest private, green bonds, venture capital, any kind of investment, countries, states, locally, $6 trillion US a year. I hope we're on track this year for 2017, but I have a funny feeling we are not. This money needs to be invested, and that's why sustainable businesses, that's why it's really a good thing. And this is actually one of my favorite slides. It was an older report done in 2012. It was a 5-year study that was done, a report by True Cost and also KPMG. And it is the total environmental costs as percentage of EBITDA. So my mentor, Al Gore, Obama yesterday, Sam Cass, many people say the fossil fuel industry, energy industry is our biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. I don't really want to disagree with them, but I have to, because there's many other facets of this system that you need to break down and understand that no, in fact, it is the agriculture, food, and beverage industry that has the largest impact on climate change. If you look at the energy sector, yes, the profits and the EBITDA on that side is huge, but the environmental impact is 23%. Now you look at food and beverage production, which really is not the full aspect of agriculture. It's also not the full aspect of beverages. The numbers aren't 100% what I believe they should be, and it's a little bit older study, but it's 224% of EBITDA. That's clean and processed, that's water waste, that's food waste, that's many other factors that are going into this. That's natural capital that's not being paid for in advance. That's this natural resource curse that we sometimes talk about, where countries have a lot of oil or a lot of things that doesn't come back in the long term for our countries, our world, and different things. And so it's an imbalance that cannot go on in a finite planet. We're eating our planet. We're eating the finite resources. And so we need a global food reform. I believe the agriculture, food and beverage industry globally is the leading major cause of climate change and human suffering. And it is really time to take this industry out of the industrial age, and I tease sometimes, I kind of say the dark ages, into a really new age of sustainability, or a sustainocene, something that is much more sustainable. And it's not just our world, it's not our bodies, it's the system, the planet that we live on. We really need to make sure that we're all sustainable. Our businesses are sustainable. It's not just a word we use, but it's sustainable because in a finite planet, that business still exists 10, 20, 30 years from now, and humanity's better because of it. This is from the EAT Forum. I'm very proud of what they're doing to reform the food industry and the movements they're doing. So I wanted to show you this slide. Is why do we need to act and transform our food system? And it talks about, obesity, nutrition, and things. It's important to take a picture of this and go to the EAT Forum. Make yourself aware. It's even better than Seeds and Chips. I love Seeds and Chips, but it's the pinnacle of food, beverage, agriculture. It's like the World Economic Forum for food. It's like the climate conference for food. And it's really important that you make yourself smart on these things that you do every day. Food, you eat every day, you drink every day. These are the big 10. We love them, we hate them. They have great sweet products, some I'm addicted to. But this is, for the long time, has really been the controllers of our world food. So they control the majority of the brands that we eat. 10 big companies. And I don't know. I never told them that I wanted any of these products. When I was a child, some chocolates and maybe some colored cereals. But we need to have more systems thinking, or more interaction with our food and how we're involved, what the good food producers and the bad are producing for us, that we let them know what we want them to produce. These are some new companies. They're not among the big 10. Some have been purchased since, but they're new innovators, new brands that are coming up with coconut water and new types of ice cream and new types of innovative methods and food products. Memphis Meats, Impossible Foods, so the vegetable replacement for meats, things like that, some plant-based milks. And now I'm going to wrap up and basically tell you what my solution was for my company. I own a company, it's called ANJA, stands for Adaptive Nutrition Joint Achievements, and we're have a facility, it's called the Aloha's Eco Center, and it's a complete systemic approach based on clean tech and renewable energy. And we took a systems approach, and we addressed these 6 major things and many more in a dynamic system. And a system that is really based off of the water, power, and food nexus. So we know that there's many facets in food production, and the 3 major players are water, energy, and food. And so we don't take natural, fresh groundwater or seawater. We use ambient water harvesting, rainwater harvesting. We have special clean and process techniques for our production facility. We do gray water recycling and black water recycling, treatment and recycling for fertilizer and some different things that were also mentioned. Then we produce our own energy. So if you ask most of the vertical farms or the innovations here today, they say water, power, and space, or rent, or available space to do their business are the main three drivers of what their costs are, what's giving them heartaches. And we've taken that out of the equation. We produce solar, wind, and hydrogen power. We use geothermal heat energy. We have battery storage and Tesla power packs, gravity energy flow, ground energy storage, and electrical logistics for trucking and for cars and for other options inside our facility. And then we do different types of vertical farming, hydroponics, aeroponics. We use, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, a circular economy. One planet living, circular economy, cradle to cradle principle. It's based and inspired off of the books and the circular economy. Ellen MacArthur Foundation, William McDonough, and Michael Braungart, who wrote the books Upcycling and Cradle to Cradle. And basically there's a biological or an organic cycle, and there's a technical cycle, and we try to keep closed loops. So when we create something, we want to make sure it stays in that loop and we're not creating waste, but that we're using the water, power, food nexus.
Large production facilities CO2 neutral, energy balance equal to net zero, growing vegetables exclusively with rainwater. The green production facility of ANJA GmbH turns current food and beverage production facilities on their head. Our complete concept of an urban green production facility sets new standards worldwide. By combining technology, innovation, renewable energy, and the recycling of resources to a holistic system, it is a truly green system. The sun, wind, and rain are our primary energy sources, along with Tesla power packs as backup. Our energy balance is net zero 365 days a year. Our process uses a complete water cycle management system that resolves the unsustainable water imbalance currently used in the food and beverage industry. We recycle and use our rainwater to 100%, and we access and protect our own natural groundwater because we filter the water with reverse osmosis equipment, and we recycle 100% of our gray water. By using only organic filtered rainwater and automated vertical farming, we have optimal space and power utilization that allows us to grow a portion of our raw materials in-house. Our adaptive nutrition concept is adjustable to the personal circumstances of each individual. All our healthy products are 100% vegan, gluten and lactose free, GMO free, contain no added sugar, have no added preservatives or fragrances or flavor enhancers, so they are completely organic, and are very delicious. Our environmentally friendly packaging is completely recyclable. Current food and beverage production facilities have stood long enough on their heads. We place them back on their feet.
This is the Lohas Eco Center. It's based in just north of Hamburg, Germany, in the region Heide. It's a 50-hectare property, 40-hectare facility, has 190,000 solar panels on it, generates 63 megawatts of renewable energy a day. Right now we're using a system with DHL Go Green Plus, which is a carbon swapping logistic program, but we have a partner with Tesla. And in September, the Tesla truck will come out, electric truck, and we're hoping to integrate those very rapidly into Europe so that our logistic carbon footprint is electric. The top corner, we're right on a freeway exit. The top corner there is a Tesla supercharging station and a hydrogen power charging station for e-cars only. And then we have an electric truck logistic rest stop and center for the trucks to charge. And we have an 8-level or 8-floor vertical farm. So on each floor there's 12 shelving racks. That's a total of 38 million square meters. Total of vertical farm growing space is 3,700 hectares of vertical farm indoor controlled environmental agriculture growing space. We have 2 wind turbines, 2.5 megawatts per turbine, so 5 megawatts of wind turbine renewable energy, and we also have 5 megawatts of hydrogen energy. There's a facility, the Heide, if you're not familiar with, is northern Germany, and it's really the renewable transition area. There's the Entree 100 and EE 100. And this is it, and I'm done. Thank you very much.